Well, our focus on the program today is going to be all about corporate social responsibility. What's the concept all about, and how much do Nigerian companies actually promote it? Well, I'm being joined on the program by PR consultant Ken Eglas. Good morning, Ken.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's just have your general assessment of how corporate social responsibility programs actually run here in Nigeria.
Well, I think before we go into how they are run, it might be nice to understand what it is.
Okay.
And corporate social responsibility really is that aspect where companies look at their processes and the things they do and how it should have a positive impact on society, bearing in mind that, they draw their resources and all the things that their businesses depend upon from that same system. So in understanding that, see how they operate in Nigeria. And it's been really interesting that over the years, it's a concept that has grown and has continued to grow. When we started to promote it in 2006, I know there were only two companies in Nigeria who had a policy on corporate social responsibility. But as we speak right now, a lot of companies are, at least I can say 80% of perhaps Nigeria's top 100 companies have CSR policies and are running CSR programs. And they've moved from that understanding of what CSR should be, not what they assumed it was, because most of them were stuck in philanthropy. And philanthropy is a system where you continue to want to do good, but do not have a system in place to continue to do good, because there's no business that is set up really to just do good or dish out its profit to society.
That's true.
There has to be some element of handing down ability of community to be able to keep themselves going after that.
So it is an integral part of business.
It is very, very integral part of business.
So has this concept really been accepted here in Nigeria? Because you say about 80% of companies right now actually have it, as part of their company profile, that they must have a CSR. But has it really been accepted here in Nigeria?
I think it has, to more than a large extent. I mean, if I say 80%, it means that, for a long time we had a situation where the discussions around corporate social responsibility was either a function of the lower level management or people at the middle level management. But it's changed so much now that CEOs of companies are leading the CSR charge, because now companies are also getting to understand that it's not enough to be seen to be doing good, but the environment that we operate in now, all the social vices, what represent ills, what represent all the problems, actually represent opportunities for some of these companies, to tie themselves to or their brands or their essence or their value to a social need of society and drive on that basis, to solve societal problems, which help them generate a positive perception and can be part of solution in society. Because what companies concentrated on largely up until this time was profitability. But now what the whole world looks at is not just profitability, but there's also the focus on people in the community, and there's also the focus on planet, which is environment.
Then we've seen that some companies haven't actually been able to sustain, their CSR, initiatives. Sometimes we've seen a couple of companies come out maybe year on year, and then the next, maybe like for the first 2 years when they come in and they're also excited about being on the market, they go out, they do so many CSRs and then the rest of it, and then 2 years down the line, everybody has forgotten that such a company actually came out to do something. So why isn't this program sustainable?
Yeah, I think in Nigeria we first had the basic issue where people confused the concept of CSR. Back in the days, I can say like four years ago, we had when people had marketing promotions and they give you the thing about things like win one get one free, and those days people used to term that as CSR. But with better knowledge now, people understand that, you cannot have just, and besides that, then there's that concept that everything with philanthropy. The thing about philanthropy is that, you may have a couple of millions you want to give to community every year, but you see, if you continue to just dish it out, the community becomes much more dependent. Because we're in a society where we've seen the failure of government, and, the only kind of success we see happens in the corporate. So once you try to do anything for community waits for it to come every year. But the sustainability aspect of it is where companies or corporates are now beginning to look at themselves, hey, we can't continue to do this, but how do we make sure, even when we start some things, that community can own it and continue to run it? And that has been what the missing gap has been. So now we are seeing companies go into that. So if you've seen any project where it looks like after 2 years you didn't hear about it, it means that it didn't have that sustainability component. And what is that sustainability thing we talk about all the time? Sustainability simply means that we can do business today and not jeopardize the ability of future generations to do business. So if we are drawing oil, if we're drawing whatever resource that we're drawing, that we can always think of how the generations after will use those same resources, and how the impact of our economic activities at companies, do not denigrate the essence of human life, but also enhance the fact that because we are in those societies, we've made life better. We are not beyond. We are not all about the quality of our product, the colors, and all of that. But now there's that competition we want to enter into about the fact that we add value to human life.
Yes, you mentioned so many times. We know that CSR is actually a philanthropical kind of program that companies do. But then, most of what they do, is it in line with global best practices?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll tell you what has happened over the last few years in Nigeria. From the research work we've done, we carry out every year. I can tell you that we've had quite a lot of best practices coming out of Nigeria. Now, what we used to have before now was that when Nigeria was looking, when our CSR professionals sought best practices, they looked onto Europe and Central Europe and America because, CSR seems to have been there for longer than it has been here. But what we always try to make people understand is that the environment that created the problems in Europe and America and the variants of issues that contribute to the solution are far different from what we have in Nigeria and the rest of Africa. So what we have now is based on the fact that in Africa we still have problems with education, problems with healthcare, problems with infrastructure and what have you, actually provides a new platform for some of these companies, even those who are multinational, to be innovative about how they engage community and develop solutions that the rest of the world can copy, because the situation here is a peculiar one. And that is what we're beginning to see from around the country. Companies going into how companies are tackling poverty, poverty alleviation programs and all of that.
That's spending a lot of money, and like you rightly pointed out, no company is in business to do CSR all the way. They have to, have a certain margin that they want to break even. They want to make profits as much as they are giving back to the society. So how does a company actually, weigh the benefits of giving CSR to how their profits, their books are going to look like at the end of the year? Yeah,
for the CEOs, the conversation was that the conversation between CEOs and their CSR managers or their corporate affairs department managers was, I'm giving you 100 million a year to put on CSR. How are you going to prove to me right now that in 12 months I get benefit for the money? And it was a problem managers had to grapple with for a long time. Because you see, the concept of CSR is not immediate results, but in long-term approach in terms of results.
When you say long-term, what are we talking about?
Yeah, long-term, because you see, the thing is that you have to make yourself, marketing today is not anymore about how good the company is. It's not any much more about, the quality of its products. It's not any much more about, the fact that you have better staff and all of that. The future of marketing is going to be fought. The few market shares are going to be fought on the basis of what do companies stand for about all the problems we have in the society. And it's already affecting why people patronize certain companies or certain brands over the other one. What are they doing about girl child education? Because at the end, what it does for you is that these issues that you attach your company to helps you to develop such massive amount of goodwill that is transmittable to cash in the future. So if you have a CSR policy, it's something that will help you. Because in the end, everybody buys perception these days. If I feel that, if you go anywhere now and talk about a company and say, they're involved in some slave trading, I'm telling you, on a global level, their shares in the market comes down the following day, because perception drives everything. And patronage and goodwill also drops. But when you invest in CSR and you build the sustainability aspect into it, meaning that you're there for the long haul, it creates an opportunity for you to make more money. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.